Welcome to episode 16 of Teachers Lift. Over the past year, we've all been struggling to identify best practices for teaching remotely. And in this episode, our hosts from PolyU chat with their colleague, Ryan Hunter, about the lessons that he's been able to carry over from his online postgraduate studies into his own teaching practices. Now let me pass things over to Jessica and Eric at PolyU. Take it away, guys. Good luck with the episode.
Are we starting? Okay. Yeah, just finished marking. You?
I haven't even started.
You're way behind.
Lucky you. All right, welcome back everybody inside the lift. Eric Tindall, Jessica Shaw here. Hope you're all doing well, healthy, happy as always, and that the teaching is going well, online or not. Actually, I think most schools are still in the online format, the vast majority in the world. So if this describes your school, you may be interested in our next guest because he's not only an experienced online teacher, but he's also a student of it as well, which will allow us to get to kind of an interesting perspective here. And we'll have him describe the program in a second, but please, everybody, let's welcome from the Hong Kong PolyU, Mr. Ryan Hunter.
Hello,
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, Ryan. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us today, Ryan.
No problem.
So you're a student. You're taking a some kind of course in online teaching or technology. I'm not too sure what it is, but do you want to describe it?
Yeah, I just started an online program for a doctorate in education at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign in their College of Education, and I started about in August before everything started getting a little crazy here. So it's been a lot of work. It's been interesting. The focus of it is it's in the education department, education policy, organization, and leadership. And it's got a really long name, Learning Design and Leadership Technology Specialist. So it's kind of covering instructional design, kind of pedagogical issues and all that kind of stuff.
Do you think that helped you with the semester suddenly having to go online?
Yeah, well, definitely, because I think my program, it's fully online. So I think it kind of gave me a model of something that actually works and has worked well, and they've been doing for quite a long time. Although, a lot of the stuff in our situation, they've designed that online course for months and months of design have gone into it, which is a little bit different because I would say we're like in remote teaching in a really short period of time. So, I mean, there's obviously can't replicate something that a lot of more time and effort went into, but there's definitely elements of it that I think help.
What are those elements? Because you said this is a model that works. And I think most teachers out there are interested in this question. What is a model that works? I
think one of the things that I realized very quickly is we have the 3-hour classes at Hong Kong PolyU, and I don't think teaching remotely live for 3 hours is a good approach. So, for example, even in my program, we only meet once a week for an hour, and most of the time it's just students doing mini presentations on the work that they've been doing for the course. So most of the communication goes on in their platform through like written updates and like sharing each week, commenting, discussion boards. And then that's where most of the class communication goes on. And then, there's video, there's content, but a lot of it that's going on asynchronously. And then very limited, there's no, hours and hours of online teaching. I don't think students can handle it, and I don't think teachers can either.
The asynchronous session that you were describing, how does the course motivate the learners to actually participate?
Well, I think in my program, it's obviously a different audience because these are people who have chosen to do the online degree as well. So, there's that factor. But for the most part, I mean, it's interesting because a lot of people are bringing in a lot of different perspectives. So there's comment and update activities. The commenting activities are like guided, where it's sort of like a general area that you need to go in and give your answer and then respond to others. And then updates, you kind of go and find your own sort of research interests, because we're trying to build on those and update people about what you're researching, and then people can read and comment on that. So I think you get a lot of different perspectives from different people from different places in my program, because there's people from like Singapore in the medical profession, there's English teachers in Asia, there's Chinese teachers who are in America, people in the military. So it's kind of been very interesting. Music teacher, I think that was one of the more interesting ones for me, is seeing what's going on in music teaching now compared to 20 years ago when I was taking classes as well. So I think there's a lot of just intrinsic motivation for a lot of the people in that program. But there's also the fact that everything in my program is tracked meticulously. So all of the comments, all of the updates, the length, the amount, how many replies you make, the text quality is automatically tracked and visualized through learning analytics and incorporated into the grade. So it actually, I think that's also a big motivating factor as well, because you actually see as you progress through the course how much focus, how much engagement it has, and they put it in numerical and visual form. And actually, a lot of the students report that's the thing they're always like pulling up, is like looking at it and saying, oh, where's my, how are my levels doing? So it seems that is actually something that really drives people to do it as well.
I want to go back to this length question that you mentioned at the beginning of your answer, the length of your synchronous classes. You said right. Usually they're no more, as a student, they're no more than 1 hour long.
Yeah.
But as you know, here at PolyU and of course at other universities in Hong Kong and elsewhere, they're going beyond 1 hour, 2 hours, or sometimes even 3 hours. And there's always this question about how long is too long and how short is too short. Did you have you learned anything as in terms of the literature? What is the ideal length for a synchronous section?
I'm not 100% sure on if there's like an exact ideal length. I mean, there's like, I think, recommendations for, like, let's say you're doing like an online lecture, or like it's not a synchronous session, but just like posting videos. A lot of people say it shouldn't go past 15 minutes. Like how long of a YouTube video can you really watch and process? There's some like long form podcasts like this one or other ones that go for 2 hours, but people usually break those up into chunks, not necessarily sitting down and actually watching it live for 2 hours straight. So, I mean, I really don't, in terms of just like watching lecture content, 15 minutes to 30 minutes seems a little bit much. But I mean, I know we're trying to do usually and I'm trying to do in our classes, like more engaging, active learning as well, which can take more time, but a lot of that can also be done asynchronously as well, and doesn't need to be necessarily done in the live format. And it's not just Hong Kong. I've been talking to teachers in the States, and they've been having the same, issues about how much should I do online, how much is too much. Because you also have to realize the students are taking multiple classes. So if you're running a 3-hour online session and they've got 2 other classes that day, they're sitting in front of a screen for 6-7 hours.
Right.
I mean, how long can you focus? I think you were blanking out there just listening to me for the last couple minutes.
Of course not.
Yeah, going back to that point about the online lectures, you said that these synchronous sessions are usually student presentations, like sharing. Right. Is it like an individual presentation?
They call them lightning talks, kind of, and mini presentations. So typically, like the way that they run it, I don't think we could run this for like language classes. This is obviously for kind of a higher level and sort of different mode. But the way they do it is like they'll take maybe the first 10 minutes and just kind of give updates on the course, general comments, reminders, that kind of thing. And then the rest of the time, it like maybe 10 minutes each student will talk about what they wrote or what research they did and present it on the screen, talk about it. and then they'll have like the live comments. They can answer questions from other students on the side, and then the instructor asks a few follow-up questions or runs a discussion after each kind of mini talk, and that might just be about 4 or 5 students per class.
So as, let's say, the audience, do you really listen to all of those presentations? Like, even if, let's say in that session you weren't assigned, like, do you attend the session just to listen to other people's sharings?
Yeah, so I mean, because it's in the States, the time for me is quite early, like usually like 7:30 a.m., 8:30 a.m., while they're over there in the evening. So they do record all of them, so you can watch them later as well. But I do try to go because I am actually interested in it. Now, obviously, every so often there's someone who's just not a good presenter or goes on a topic that's, you know, not all that interesting. And then, you know, you can be polite and chill for a bit, but, you know, usually most people are there, and people are really active in the chat box, kind of like bringing up, making comments, encouragement. And it kind of seems just, these are all teachers though, so they're kind of trained to do that kind of stuff. I think for our students to do it, I mean, we'd have to do a lot more scaffolding
Yes.
to encourage that kind of interactive and active behavior in the online sessions.
Yes.
It's something I struggled with.
The reason why I asked that is because I had multiple sessions where students had to share what they did with the rest of the class, and even after like the entire sharing session was over, and then suddenly I get like comments in the chat box saying, "Is it my turn?" or "Has this ended?" You know, you just realize that when it's not their turn, they're not there. You know, they're even if they have their earphones there, I don't think they're listening. So I was just wondering, like, for your course, a lot of the synchronous sessions are student sharing, student-led, like sharing sessions or discussions. Like, it's just very challenging for us to be able to replicate that in our language classrooms with our students who might not really want to be there and they're not that motivated in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my personal experience though too, I think when I'm in those sessions too, I'm very interested to hear what the professors are going to say about what other people have presented on, because that's kind of giving me an idea about what I've done and if I'm going in the right direction as well. So, I mean, something I could see for our students though too is like if they do, you know, keep it short, we give them direct feedback on maybe some topic and stuff, and that could generate a little more interest. I know obviously there's some people who still aren't going to be motivated as well, but I don't know. I think that's an issue with assessment as well, and you know what we're giving students credit for.
Yeah. Have you tried that with your classes, like this mode that you're experiencing with your online course? Have you tried any of those elements in your classes this semester?
Maybe just the beginnings of it, but because I think this time it was difficult just to get the students to interact at all in the platform. So I don't think I could do anything really that complicated, like getting them to present in front of. I mean, it was a kind of a milestone when like I finally got someone to actually turn on their microphone. Yay. For the first time, you know, a couple weeks in, I think. I got them from chat and then actually finally got them to actually say something on mic, like a sentence or so. But so yeah, I think it was difficult. I don't know. I don't know if we need to set sort of a precedent early on, but I mean, I do think there's also the issues with, you know, students with their living conditions and, you know, they're a little embarrassed. And this is also a developmental language course. So it's a little bit different than, you know, you've got professionals or people who are maybe more confident in communicating and presenting as well. So I don't know if the same approach really works.
All right. Okay. So Ryan, you know, has kind of mentioned a few of the good things about his course that he's taking in education technology. and he mentioned this is a really good model that we should all be following, or at least trying to emulate to some extent. And yeah, you mentioned something a little bit earlier, Ryan, and I didn't quite understand it, but that just could be me. But you said something about data analytics being incorporated into your grade. I don't know how,
Yeah.
did I understand that correctly? What does that mean exactly? Can you explain that?
Okay, so the model for the courses that I'm taking, basically they have some like projects where you have to like submit a paper or two works multiple times for peer review. You peer review other students, and then it gets published or approved by the instructor. But on top of that is there's these weekly updates that people need to comment on, and you need to write updates that are like 300, 400 words. And so it's all put into this system, like a learning management system, and then it tracks your activities in there. So let's say, for example, I type in my 200 word assigned response for that week, and then it adds it to my visualization. I have a little chart, and then it goes up a few percentage points. And then I go in and I read a few other comments or a few other updates, and I write a comment on it, and those comments get added to my full percentage. So it's actually incorporates every activity in the program that you're doing, and gives you some sort of credit in it. And so they break it up into different sections. Like there's a part of the grade that's for the major assignments. There's a part of the grade for like peer review, length of peer review, amount of comments that you gave for peer review, the length of it, the quality, and then there's the whole like kind of social element with updates, comments, and stuff too. So yeah, it's quite meticulous.
Right. From a student's perspective, from your perspective, how satisfied are you that you're being assessed based on those types of things?
Well, actually, like it kind of, in some ways, it feels more that I'm being assessed on my own efforts, and it makes more sense, the grade that I get, than sort of maybe getting an arbitrarily graded summative assessment at the end, based on one thing, not based on everything that I did in the last, 8 weeks in the course. So actually, my grade is no surprise because I can see it in real time. And then I know if I need to do more things. I know if I'm screwing something up and I need to course correct. So it kind of gives, that continuous feedback that if you are having a problem in the class, that you can actually do something about it, rather than you're having a problem in the class, then you're waiting for the grade to come in like halfway through the semester, and then you find out, uh-oh, what do I do now? So I think in some ways that it's good, like model. I know some people might be uncomfortable with everything being so closely monitored and stuff too, but I do think there is some benefits to it.
Do you get feedback from the instructor?
Yeah, so you get feedback. They have the TAs that kind of look at the, okay, so like let's say I submit a work, and then it goes through 3 peer reviewers, and then it comes back to me for revision. And then I send it back, and then it goes through the TA. The TA, if there's something wrong with it, comments to me. I have to make changes, and then it goes to the actual, my supervisor, instructor, and then they approve it, and they'll write some comments on it as well. So you're actually getting about 5 rounds of feedback on the work.
Okay.
And it's kind of really, yeah.
Okay. So I guess my question is, when you said you can actually tell what your grade would be, that's of course a good thing. But at the same time, do you feel like it's all computer like generated, making like the teacher role less relevant in a way?
Well, I think, I think it's changing the role of the teacher. I mean, because they've obviously curated the content, they've created videos, written things, did the reading. So there's a lot of that work that's before the class. But yeah, when the class is actually running live, it's not very teacher-centered. The focus is more on the interactions between the students based on the content that's been created by the teacher. So, a lot of the stuff that they're doing, in terms of preparing for the course is happening before the course even starts. And then when the course is running, then they can focus more on marking and giving feedback rather than direct instruction, I think. So I don't feel like it's like I'm just interacting with a computer, because it's not set up in the way where we're like doing like multiple choice questions, like through like that kind of thing, because it's more based on the social interactions between the students, and that's more what you're being assessed on.
Now you're also, I mean, you also teach as well. If you had to assess students using this method, would you be comfortable doing it? Would you be comfortable outsourcing some of their grade to a computer?
Yes, and I've done it before. I did it a little in South Korea when I used to work there at a university, and I did it a little in Macau when I used to work there as well. So using, I used to use Moodle, and I think there's similar settings in Blackboard. It's like completion, activity completion, and progress tracking settings. So some of the things that you can do is just to run a simple asynchronous activity. You can say like, okay, here's a discussion topic, give a reply and respond to 3 other students. And you can set the parameters automatically where it can tell if they've done that, and then if they've done that, they receive the credit for it as well. And so I think if it's a continuous like weekly activity like that, I think it works well. I know teachers get paranoid about that because, there's so much marking. I have to read all of these responses. But I think that's not a good idea either. I think, don't feel like you need to do, go through every response and try to give a mark to every response. You can set sort of, basic expectations, and then as long as they fulfill it, they get some sort of credit for it. And I've also done that with speaking assessments as well. I used to use VoiceThread, and now I'm looking at Flipgrid. And basically each week students were given a topic, they respond, record a video, and then you respond to other students as well. And as long as you fulfilled those criteria, maybe some length requirements, and then, I go in and I monitor to make sure there's nothing really funny going on, nothing really suspicious going on. But if everything seems, on the level, then they can get credit. It doesn't have to be a big part of the grade as well, but just something that will keep engagement there. Because I have been running into the problem with the classes here of getting students to complete activities before the class, activities during the class, activities after the class, and I try to appeal to their conscience and morality, but that hasn't been working that well.
For one of my courses, there's a 5% grade called peer review. And I think the students were confused as to what it actually was. So I think they misunderstood that as they needed to complete weekly activities. So whatever activity that I gave them, like almost all of them did it like no problem. And I had like a really good class, like for like Flipgrid you were talking about. Like I give them a topic, 2 minutes, and I would see all the videos there, and I tell them, please comment, please give each other feedback, and they would do it. I think they thought that was a part of peer review. So I think this goes back to like what you were talking in the beginning about assessments, how assessments need to be set up in an like online course friendly way, like to motivate students to be able to complete these tasks. So like going back to that point, how do you think assessments should be set up if we're looking at online courses?
Okay, that's a big question. Obviously, you got to have discretion based on what the goals and the outcomes of the course are. Some courses are going to be more geared towards writing, and then some that are more geared towards speaking. I think with the ones more geared towards writing, it's probably easier to sort of do some of the assessments asynchronously and fully online. I think you've got those major assessments, like let's say a paper or something, and obviously those should be like the big part of the grade. But I also think that you could look at the progress. Like if you're doing process writing, you can assess give some credit towards each step of the process of the way, and you can structure that in any way. So like you said, there could be the peer review, but then there could be even like a brainstorming element where they submit some preliminary things, or then there's some discussion element. And I mean, you can make these like really small percentages. And in some ways, like I found and I've read that even like assigning a small percentage to some of these tasks is enough motivation. Because I think people really like, sometimes our minds, we don't really compute how much something is actually worth. There's some students who are very pragmatic and they know they'll, like I've had them before, they're like, oh, that's only worth this amount of the point, so I don't have to do that because it won't affect, this. But for a lot of people, they're not really looking at, how big of an impact, that each thing will be. And I think especially if it's like a visualization, there is sort of this gamification and stimulus element where like if you have like a progress bar that they can see goes up, or if there's some, something added to there's badges and things like that as well. Sometimes those are you see some movement and you're like, I think it's the same impulse that drives people to, play mobile games for hours for like upgrading and all that kind of stuff.
Just on that note, when you're speaking about analytics and having all these different activities go into the computer system and student responses go into the computer and get recorded, it reminded me of there's this really good article in the Guardian, and I'm just going to quote it for a second, and I want to get your reaction. I'll kind of play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
So they write, in the overnight dash to online teaching, universities have shown little caution in both contributing to profit-making of corporates and compromising data on servers universities themselves do not control. Imagine students agreeing to give up their ideas and information to be stored at an unknown location and with little control over how they are used in years to come. Knowingly or unknowingly, universities may be contributing to surveillance capitalism.
I read the article before before this, so yeah, I've read it too, and I mean I think it's a legitimate concern. I mean, even related to that, I don't know if you've heard recently that Canvas in structure was actually going to sell, and so there's this big concerns about where the data is going and things as well. I mean, I think it's a major problem in education, but I mean, it's everything. I mean, it's the data with everything now, social networking, even Zoom, what we're doing now. I don't know if it's a problem that individual teachers can really do much about. I mean, it's like major reforms that need to be conducted. I mean, because the idea that, each university is going to invest in producing its own, like, self-contained system I think this is also an issue as well. So it's kind of like you're selling something to get something in return.
Right.
So I mean, I think all those problems are there, but I don't really know what the answer is.
Right. Yeah. But it's almost like it's just another extension of the world that we're living in, with everything moving to social media. More and more of our lives are available for all that we can see. Then why not just have have that extended to education? All of our classes will be, viewed. Students' responses can be viewed. So it's almost, as you said, as individual teachers, there's not much we can do to stop it, but it is.
And there's also limitations on how well you can anonymize anyone on their online activity. So I mean, with the data exhaust, I mean, your name, your social security number, your ID card number can all be masked, but it's actually easy to identify a person with just a few data points. Actually, we're all quite unique in what we do online each day. And I mean, this is a big issue with any privacy on the internet, is that actually it's becoming increasingly easier, even if through encryption, even through these things, that it's hard to be completely anonymous.
Right.
Hi, Ryan. Going back to a point you mentioned in the very, very beginning, I think you used the word remote learning instead of online learning.
Remote teaching.
Remote teaching. Sorry, yes, remote teaching. And yes, a lot of people would say that what we're doing this semester, what we're doing all around the world, is actually remote teaching, not really online teaching. But then a lot of people are also saying that we need to be prepared, like if we need to do this again in semester 1 or next year. So if you're thinking about moving forward, how do you think we can get to online teaching? And do we actually need to get there? Or can we just continue on with what we're doing now?
Okay. I mean, I think, yeah, we have to be practical about this. And I mean, I don't think we can reform everything in, what do we have, 3 months now? But I do think we need to try to take some steps, kind of looking at how this semester went, and try to hopefully, like, different schools can maybe like even take like a course and really try to develop it and see what works, and maybe see if we can start coming out with some good models, because I think that's an issue with a lot of the language teachers too, is like kind of seeing how, because I think the issue with the remote teaching is that I think there's a lot of just trying to replicate sort of the traditional teaching model, and even didactic pedagogy, using online learning and technology, which I think is running into kind of a larger pedagogical issue. I mean, because we can use all these tools, and just using the tool itself doesn't ensure that we're transforming learning or doing something in a better way. So like, even for example, if you use like Kahoot, it's interactive, it's fun, but it's really just like reproducing multiple choice questions, which is this one right answer didactic pedagogy. And it's not really taking advantage of like the online environment where, you know, you can do more exploration activities where students go out and find their own topic, do their own research, report back. So, I mean, a lot of that, I think we're still replicating very old teaching techniques, right, just in a very modern way. And I think it's going to take a deeper look at sort of some of what we're doing and what we kind of have become used to really make some, I think, necessary reforms, but I don't think it's going to happen overnight.
I think this is one of the reasons we get so frustrated when we can't get students to interact in the class or in the online synchronous sessions, is because we expect them to interact in the classroom. And that's because we're trying to replicate the classroom experience. And as you pointed out, well, maybe this is the wrong approach. Maybe we have to totally rethink this from the ground up, that, you know, we don't need interaction necessarily.
Or just different forms of interaction as well, I think. And I mean, yeah, I think my number one suggestion would be, don't teach 3 hours. Don't teach a 3-hour online lecture or course, but maybe look at parts of the activities, parts of even the content that, you know, it could be asynchronous, that students can finish at their own pace. But I do think the other thing that we need to look at is the assessment, to ensure that it's getting done in a timely manner that works for teachers and works for the courses. Because I think, again, we have a lot more control in the classroom and, you know, making sure the discussion's going on. And I think a lot of that has to do with social pressure and, you know, the presence of the teacher, the environment as well, which it evaporates really quickly in the online environment. And I don't think we can just, try to do business as usual. I think there has to be some, change.
So on that issue of change, so imagine the next semester, we've also got to do this again, online teaching again. What would Ryan Hunter, the experienced, the trained online teaching guru, what would he do?
I'm not that. I'm in training. I'm in training.
What would he
do?
You're more of a guru than all of us here.
Yes.
So we definitely respect what you have to say and are interested. You know, what would you do differently besides, of course, the length? We want to keep this. We want to keep the synchronous session shorter, not 3 hours. But what else would you do now that you've had this semester to kind of test it all out, and you've also gotten more input from your class?
I mean, I think the number one thing for me isn't the type of tool that you use, because I think you can use any tool and do a lot of the same activities. So I don't think there's like a magical technology that's going to fix this for us. But I do think for me and in my classes, it'd have to be making some changes to how the assessment is structured to encourage more active learning and participation from students. Because it's a major problem too, because if you have some students are going to do it no matter what, because they're more engaged. But if you're trying to do kind of collaborative learning, social learning, and 50% of the class isn't engaging, that's impacting the other half in this sort of model. And so I think we have to put some sort of, I would like a tool to be able to have some sort of accountability built in, because I'm not sure if our students are going to be completely self-motivated to kind of be those active learners. But I think we have to be realistic about what we expect. So I mean, I hope some teachers don't think, okay, everyone has to have their cameras on the whole time and talk for this amount of time. I think it needs to be really flexible in it. And I think a lot of the things that can maybe track the engagement and can be tracked can be asynchronous as well. And then hopefully if there's more preparation in that would have some impact on the live sessions as well.
And on that note, I think on the students' point of view, they came into this really like deer in the headlights. They did not know what to expect, and they did not know what was expected of them. Like maybe we were thinking, oh, you should turn on your camera, you should be talking to your peers, you should be sharing. But maybe they just really didn't know what was expected of them. So like what Ryan was talking about, like how we could structure the assessments or just allocate some kind of percentage to their participation or accountability, I think in a way that could give them some sort of guidance of, okay, this is what is expected of me, and this is something that could motivate them as well. But yeah, we'll really have to rethink, yes, just like what Eric was saying.
Yeah, and I really think part of that too, I think a strong would be somehow to visualize it. So students can see that they're progressing through the course, they're hitting benchmarks as well, because I don't think just attending the sessions really gives that feeling as well. I think it's different when you go to your class. It's like, okay, I went to class, I did all these activities today, I feel like I did something. I feel like that sensation and that feeling kind of is a little bit not as strong. So I mean, just a way that in our courses or in the online element of the course, some sort of front and center visualization, like not just the grade book, but something that like you can see, this is how much you've completed, this is how far you've gotten, this is what you still need to do as well. Because I know some of us are trying to do that. We're like sending like announcements in the email, and I think it can get a little bit, you get overbogged with all these instructions and do this, do that, do that. But if there's like sort of like a central area to see, okay, here's how the course is mapped out, and this is how how I'm progressing through it. And a lot of the LMSs do have some support for that kind of function.
Thank you very much for that. I think, yeah, we have a lot to reflect on, but today's session, like Ryan gave us some very practical tips on length of the synchronous sessions, assessments, how we should be rethinking interaction, the structure of online classes, maybe just helping us think about the difference between remote teaching and online teaching, and what we want to do with it moving forward. So thank you very much, Ryan, for
Thank you, Ryan.
sharing.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes. And we really hope, we don't know what's going to happen in September, but Ryan, please come back and share more concrete tips with us if we need to do this again.
We can all rest knowing that we're not alone in the world.
Yeah, true.
In this, so everyone's going through it. So
When we have to do this again.
When,
yeah.
Yes, not if. Yes. Thank you so much for being with us, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Teachers Lift. Teachers Lift is a growing collaborative project created to help give teachers a space to share their professional experiences and practices. This podcast is created by colleagues from the English Language Center at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, the Center for Applied English Studies at the University of Hong Kong, and the Center for Language Education at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. We hope you can support this effort by letting us know you're listening. Just log in to teacherslift.com and find links to most social media platforms where you can like and subscribe. If you do subscribe to this podcast using the podcasting app of your choice, you'll be notified whenever we post new episodes. Thanks for listening. This episode was recorded on May 22nd, 2020.